And here we are. How are you doing?
Good. It's evening for me, so pretty amped up for this before I go to bed. But yeah, all good so far. How about you?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for asking. Are you one of those guys that like to work late, or you prefer like like a morning routine?
I'm I think I've transitioned into more of a daytime person, but it's always in me to have a creative juice flowing like later on at night. And you already know, like for others, like the later it is, most of them they get more creative. It's a struggle to get go to bed versus do more work.
What do you think is that? Do you think perhaps at the end of the day you're done with the responsibilities, you can just kind of relax and perhaps allow ideas come through you and flesh them out, and then immediately I find myself a lot of times I don't lose sleep over stress. I do lose sleep over an idea or something I want to do or somebody I want to talk to.
Yeah, I think when the night progresses, you have less things to distract you for like day-to-day things don't bother you. So you don't have your phone ringing and like things are more kept things are done or things are kept away until the next day. So you have more time. And when you have more time, you create more capacity to want to think about or do things that you want. So that's when us, like creative people, we start to think, what can we do more for our own work or like for other people? So that's why I think we kind of like, as the night progresses, like we get more creative.
Now, I agree with you. So, what your daily routine looks like? Are you someone who has a routine or depends day by day?
I have like a fix. I would say like not fixed, but like I run by certain things to make sure like I go about my day if I have no shoot for work. Um, because if, for example, if I need to go out and shoot for work, then my routine is not gonna happen. So um, from like the start of the day, I would have like I actually don't look at my phone for like at least probably 30 minutes. So I, take a shower, wash up, and I intentionally do that because like having looking at the phone first thing stresses you out. So I try not to let that affect me first. And then I will have coffee and do the most intensive stuff like emails and all the things that are backlogged. And then I will have my lunch and continue to do like either my social media stuff or like work that is ongoing. Um, and as the evening progresses, I slow down and work out if I can. And as the night progresses, again, like more and more, that's when I do like more experimental stuff, creative stuff. So I would like maybe experiment with my editing or think about ideas that I want to do in the near future and so on. Then and if I have work, then I try to build a routine around that if I can, even if I'm traveling. So um, yeah, because my background is I didn't study any art. I studied aerospace. So this is like there's no link to how like when I first started, I started via like just being curious about photography. And because I have an engineering background, so the way I approach photography and creativity, I will explain to people it's like 70%, 30%. It's 30% structured, and 70% creative. It's not full on 100%. Yeah.
And that's an interesting thing. A lot of people believe either you have a right brain or a left brain, right? You're someone who's analytical or someone who can be creative. You somehow manage to have both of them. Can you tell me a little bit about the aspect of having discipline and have an analytical approach to creativity?
Yeah, I think there's always two for me how I see it. There's two types of creatives. There's a creative that works hard and trains their mind to do what their forte and niche is, and there's another one that's just a pure genius, right? Whatever he or she touches is like it's gold. I think like I would like to believe I'm like probably a little like in the middle, more to the like training my eyes side. So more discipline, more training structure, and learning how to compose, how to frame pictures. Because I think when I first started, I looked at a lot of references from social media and websites, and that helped me into learning how to compose, learning how to take pictures. Um, I would like to believe like if I don't have that, I wouldn't be where I am today. I took a lot of years of practice and discipline to you know, reference, replicate pictures that I like and make things on my own further on. So it's a lot of practice, but crossover with reflection and learning how to improve your craft.
You said earlier about there are genius out there that whatever they touch becomes gold. Who for you would be some of those people?
Um, I think I for you're asking about like in terms of the photography world or just like any.
Any aspect in terms of creativity, someone that you feel like, everything this person does is just beyond.
Mm, I think I can't think of like any that struck to me like, oh, like he or she is the one, but
Hmm.
I think like in general aspect, I really like you know, the works of just like very very old photographers like this guy named Fan Ho. He's
Mm.
he does like photography on light and shadow, and the way he sees things is way ahead of its time. The way he compose and structure everything. Most of his pictures are, I think all his pictures are black and white. It was before like when color was even in this you know, introduced in the whole space. So um, I think having being a creative artist, knowing how to stick to a craft and stand against or even be in front of others, it's like something revolutionary because if you're doing that, then you're kind of like against all odds, right? People don't agree with you because you are doing something different. And I think like that's something I really admire for artists that stand on their ground and have a very abstract or very like you know, deep and meaningful concept that goes beyond this current time. Yeah.
I want to ask a question about social media because you have an incredible following. You very, very much set yourself as a leader on that field when it comes to photography, mostly on Instagram as well. In a world that we live in, that everybody measure their metrics about likes and shares and the algorithm and all of those things. How are you measuring your improvement? How are you measuring your success?
I think it's a constant reminder for an artist that is doing and creating work on social media. We are often driven by metrics, so it's, you know, inevitable that the bigger the engagement, the more direct the surfacial level, I would say, of success it is. But I think the ultimate, you know, satisfaction and success is only a question that you need to ask yourself on whether has the work you create satisfy you deep inside, and you know, has it fulfilled uh, that purpose during that time. Um, for example, if I want to create a series of work 3 years ago, back then, have I created all these that are satisfactory despite low or high numbers? Um, and this is something I would say almost everyone, including me, like struggle with. It's because we get very easily distracted by engagement on social media. So if something performs really great, we tend to deviate and we tend to stick to content that, you know, does great and keep on doing that. Um, which it's great if you want to, you know, stick to that. But I think sometimes certain content just pop off without you even knowing and realizing. It might be the most random content, and then you suddenly become someone who does that type of content, and your initial core as an artist, your initial passion, it deviated. So I think like sticking to your core is very important. So success to me is basically, am I satisfied at my current work at that current time?
And I think if I understand this correctly, I think it's very important what you're saying that you allowed yourself to determine your success based where you were at that point in your life, which means 3 years ago would be very different than what it is today. That likely from 3 years from now, your idea of success will be different as well. I think a lot of times people combine this whole thing as a lifetime kind of goal. This is what success looks like. But if I understand correctly, you are really much allowing yourself to define depending where you are in time and place.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right on that because um like when you first started you can't create something that's revolutionary. That's too much for you. So at that you're right. At that current place in time, the relevancy of it is um based on the success is based on the relevancy of that current time and place that you're creating that work.
So you feel perhaps a lot of people will suffer that because they look at you, people that inspire to have like to be like you or at least having something similar what you have, and it's starting today. Immediately you a point of reference, but they cannot reach 1.23 million followers overnight. It's been years and years of practice. So it's more about tempering your expectation, but not only giving up on your goals, but managing them in a way that you can progressively get there step by step.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And that you think is a big part of the discipline because as you talked earlier, it's about being able to improve in your craft and do those things do take time. But a lot of people have wants to do this full time. And it takes courage because you mentioned before
Mm.
you were studying to be an engineer, and then to immediately go to something completely different. There's a sense of um, not knowing what's going to happen, perhaps a little scared of that as well.
Yeah, it's something that it's very uh yeah, like you said, scary, and also it the more as years goes by, I've been doing this full time for about 7 years. The more I realize that it's heavily also dependent on the culture and the place you're in. So, for example, I'm based in Singapore, and in Singapore, everything it's the definition of success now it's kind of changing, but it's still heavily dependent on materials, finance, and having a stable job. And doing photography has none of that. It's it's everything opposite. So this is entirely unstable, and you never know when is your next job. You just started. So this will worry your family and
Mhm.
the people around you. And the I think the struggle is you have to fight with all these against the current is always against you. It's always no, no, no. And that is a lot of hard work already before even, pursuing your craft full time. So that combined, the struggle is really difficult. But thankfully, I think in this age and in this era, it's a little easier. Everyone's doing content on the side. So it seems like stepping in, it's a little more more easier. But still doing it full time over here is difficult. Versus if, I do it in the US, like a big city like New York, there's like more acceptance and support, because there's more budget or there's more, people that um, are more receptive of your creative vision. So again, yeah, it really also depends on where you're from and so many various different factors.
Can you give me an example at one point in your last 7 years that you felt a lot of pushback and a lot of no's that you were able to overcome and really show something that you wanted to show to the public?
Yeah, so I think back then I was so I did the little it's already an unconventional route at age 22 thereabouts. I pursue this full time. But again, another unconventional thing that I did was to move out. So I needed my own space to have creative inspiration and sit down and all that. It's not common for people in Singapore to move out at such a young age because you need to pay rental, which is very expensive here.
Mm.
Um, so I had to pay rental every single month with basically not knowing when my next paycheck is. So that was financially a big struggle. And another struggle was I didn't blow up overnight back then. It was so tiny steps, progressively, little steps. Um, so the rejection wave is bigger than the progression wave.
Yes.
So it's you always look at that in your mind, you're like, can can you do this? Like, so you question yourself every day. And that plus having a financial difficulty of like even paying rent every month is something difficult. So that was like one of the biggest struggles to even start the snowball rolling. Yeah.
The questioning yourself every day, all the no's and the rejections and this uncertainty if you're going to be able to pay your rent the next month, all those things. How do you keep the dream alive? How do you keep the motivation, the enthusiasm to continue knowing that, for how long do you do that until you realize that perhaps you have to move on to something else?
I think it's again, it's a constant battle in my head, but I think most of the times like if I get small jobs here and there, and that is like, you know, such a great baby step to the next big job. Um, I will always like try and like basically just hype myself up and just like manifest like, okay, next one is going to be good. So let me put in more effort. So I kind of create my own drive and basically, tell myself that I will do this X amount of photos. That's when I exercise a lot of discipline because when everything is against you, you need to show up. You show up for yourself, basically. And at that point in time, not many people are recognizing that you have such a huge progression and success because you're still so tiny.
Hmm.
Um, so you need to be your biggest believer, and yeah, I thankfully I had that positivity in me, and it's important as well to have your passion going uh, as pure as it can, um, which naturally it is at the very start because you're not doing anything fully commercial. So, I hang out with friends, and all of us just went out and take photos just for fun, posted on Instagram, and just like commented on each other's photos, built a community online. And I think that was what made me happy. And basically, that was like a source of light for me at the
Mm.
end of the tunnel. I was like, that's nice. I'm growing like that. And then like I could do this. And then I just go on day by day, knowing that.
What was the project or the job that you realized, okay, the tide is shifting, things are shifting for me. I'm finally being able to get ahead. And you realize yourself, I'm actually pretty good at this. I can do this. Was that a specific moment or a specific job?
I think it's actually not a job. It's actually, I would say, like recognition from media. So, like news articles and also like TV and basically media. I think so backtracking a little bit, when I first jumped into full-time photography, it was not easy because I had to convince my parents. And Asian parents, they want you to be an engineer, a lawyer, and I am an engineer, so it's a correct path. But I decide to, I decide to jump somewhere else, super in the fog. There's nothing. So this was a difficult conversation, and I made a bet with my parents that I need 1 to 2 years to go all out, and if I fail, I go back to university. So that was the bet I made, and within that 2 years, I actually got recognition from newspaper articles. So some photos were posted on the bottom corner of the newspaper. It was small, but it was such a big victory for me. And I went on TV, live TV, and my photos were on some articles. So those were like the recognition I need because those help me to. But traditionally, media like these validates your work.
Mm,
And with that, you have a strong advantage to you because now you can tell people, look, I appeared on this and that. And
yeah.
you kind of like self-verifying. It's like verified by real media outside. Yeah.
Let's go back to the time that you had to have that conversation with your parents. What was like? I'm sure it was not easy. It took probably a lot of courage to have the opportunity to talk to them about it. And just go back to that day and tell me how'd it go.
I think again, like it's not a one night thing. It took like
Mm,
probably like 6 months for me to fully convince them. And it's always the span of 6 months is always about me presenting them with my social media and whatever small little recognition I can get. So you can say they are like my first like they need to approve, like they're my
yeah.
client, right? They need to approve everything. So I had to gather everything I have and always convince them day by day that like, look, there's like all these and there's a glimmer of hope. I just need 1 to 2 years. And if I always back it up with if I fail, I'm really young back then. I'm only 22, which I can go back to
Yeah.
university. It's fine. So through time, as numbers grew a little bit, and as my works get more and more like constant, they kind of like let way for a little bit and be like, okay, maybe I can do that. Maybe you can do that, like for 1 year, 2 years, and then by the end of 6 months, like almost every day convincing them, then they
Yeah.
give the okay, and I just went full on. Yeah.
Amazing. What an incredible story. Okay, can you give me an inside look what it is Singapore creative community? Because a lot of times we think of Singapore a super well developed, you
Mm.
know, place, rich with lots of wealth and amazing buildings and all of that. But there are people that live in the city, they really engage with you know, what the city has to offer that goes beyond what we can see from far away from here, from the West, or from anywhere in the world. What is like that community? You mentioned before that you had that group of friends that was very much like a beacon of hope for you in the beginning. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think because the country is so small, so the community is also very tight, and they because we also know what the struggles are, so we connect based on the struggles as well, and we help each other whenever we can. And I think back then the community it's way smaller. Now there's so many creatives, but um, the constant thing throughout all these span of time is that um, everyone recognizes that Singapore is still relatively traditional in terms of success. So everything that we are doing, we are actually the minority. Like artists are minority. So knowing that everyone is glued together and we help each other out. It's definitely there's an upside and the downside. And the downside is that when things get too commercial, there's budget involved, and typically the budget in Asia it's way lesser than um, you know Europe or US. So this is always a struggle that creatives have over here because we are always being undercut. So that's when back then I was I had a interaction and also like did an exhibition with a established photographer, and he would help all the younger photographers and protect them if he can. And I think I got inspired by that. And through this span of time, as I grow, I want to help and protect the people that are trying and coming out progressively to do this full time as well. So
That's
the creative scene is like it's the same worldwide, but over here it's more prominent in terms of like financial struggles and versus and also like the constant definition of success. Yeah.
hmm. That's an interesting thing because often when there are no so ma- when there are little opportunities in a community like this, that can generate a lot of competitive, be competitive with one
Yeah.
another. Is
Yeah.
that still the case?
It's always there's always a group that it's probably like very common in around the world and even in Singapore. There are people who will literally because this is their bread and butter. So if they lost a job to someone else in the same industry, um there might be some friction, there might be some conflict, but for me at least, I don't want to meddle with all that, and I try to not basically group around people who are um, like that. I want to be with a group that is more open and more receptive to everything, that help each other out, and even I even know people, I even know clients that basically they are working, people who are working for competitive brands, but outside they hang out and it's fine. Yeah. So I'm sure like for me, I really believe that there's plenty of fishes in the ocean. There's enough work for everyone. If you like sour over one single job and take it so personally, I think like it's, I don't really like resonate with that. So, yeah, I would just like step away from that group if I can.
Yeah, amazing. You have collaborating with some amazing brands in the past, and I'm sure there's more to come. At today, as you start get yourself more established, are you more cognitive about who to partner with, which brand to be part of as well, or for you is it's a job and you happy to just take jobs that come in your way?
I think that this is like, the artist's dream is to work with the brands and visions that they enjoy and get fully paid. That's like the best marriage, right?
Yeah.
So that's something that I always want to work to. And to work towards that, I also am very strict about my positioning and branding. So as I progress through my career, I actually get more and more selective on who I work with. Um, and I'm very thankful now that I have, the a little bit of leverage to pick and choose who
Mhm.
I work with. I think the number one thing is the vision and also whether does it resonate to what I do. If it does, then I'm open to discussion. But if it does not, then I won't even open the gates at all. But back then, I had to do everything.
Yes,
So
no,
I
of
had to
course.
yeah. So I had to work for it until now. Then I have a little bit of leeway to like, okay, might not be able to take this, then it's okay. Like, I have enough money for now and let me like stick to my vision, stick to my brand. Yeah.
You talk about your brand. How would you describe your brand in a few words?
I would say it's I would say it's definitely along the lines of showcasing beauty in the everyday life. So basically documenting the entire you know things that happen around us. And more often than not, we don't take notice because we are either on our phones or we are like talking with people, and that's fine. But I think like I'm a huge believer of like there's beauty all around us. We just need to observe. So that's my motto and like my branding. So the pictures I take are very representative of that. It showcases everyday life.
Is there a lot of prep for some of your pictures you're taking, or you're more spontaneous? Just go out there and just try to capture as much as you can?
For the pictures that I take for myself to put online, they're all spontaneous. So I would I would have like just a rough plan, like okay, I would like to go to this place and maybe have some checklist of like some cool street or iconic places that I want to check out and roam around there. But for commercial and paid jobs, I have to it's all planned. I have to make a storyboard. I have to create a script even if I need to, and like even give a detailed timeline of like what's supposed to happen. So I can go, both ways. It depends.
What are you working now? What is you have planned for this year and upcoming years? Anything specific?
Yeah, I plan to do more educational stuff because over COVID, I've developed a passion for guiding and teaching people on how to do photography, composition, framing, and even like how to understand basically like lighting, body language of the whole city. So I want to impart whatever I have to in terms of a long form video. So I'm doing like YouTube this year onwards. So I need to basically, it's a long process. I need to dig my own brain and um, make it like in layman terms, it into a script and talking to the camera on like how to breaking it down, how to shoot, how to understand. So that is a long process, and that's something I will work on this year. Um, on top of that, I'm also going to also do more like intentional photography and videography. So I would like to highlight basically, if I can, places or like subjects that are often like not being seen. For example, maybe like a struggling like shop, or let's say like a community that is always like helping out, but there's no light of, spotlight on them. I want to use my social media to help out like that.
What does photography means to you in a world where billions of photos are taken every day?
Um, that's a deep question. I think to answer that, I think you're asking like what does photography mean to me, right?
Yes.
With um to me, I think it's basically like it's a memory of something you take away with, and it's a reflection of who you are and your observation. So, the more I take photos, the more reflective of what I observe and who I am. You can see through photos how that person views the world. So I think that's photography to me. Yeah.
I these days it's almost impossible for me to have a conversation with any creator without talking about AI.
Mm.
So here we are. I'm gonna ask you, what are your thoughts on AI and how do you see this influencing you, but also your field in the upcoming years?
I think AI is definitely, it's here to stay for sure. And it's being incorporated in our daily lives more and more. I'm a huge, I'm a very adaptable person, so I'm a huge believer in if something big is coming, we should embrace it, right? And I embrace AI in my entire workflow. So I think it will assist and speed things up. It already speed things up right now, like using ChatGPT or using Photoshop AI to remove things and all that. But I think people are afraid that it will take away their jobs. Um, it does for now, at least. I would like to say for now, it removes the basic, you know, things. For example, like admin, logistical stuff. It does the job. But I think for creative stuff, there is still a definitive clear line on something that is thought out with a human soul versus a machine. Until when the lines are blurred, then it's a tricky one. But I
Yeah.
think for now, humans for creativity, the human touch is still needed. So we will not lose our jobs, and it's going to help us. It's going to ease. our workflow. That's how I feel. Yeah.
What's the best compliment you ever got?
That's, let me think. Uh, I think that the biggest, I would like to say the biggest and also probably the most like constant compliment that I like to hear, and thankfully I've heard that a couple times, is that when they compliment you that your works are something that is so like obvious that you don't need to see what's the account name. Like it's from YK. Like it's so nice to hear that, because I think for me the ultimate goal is to create as an artist works that I don't need to smack my name all over the entire canvas and people can recognize it. So I think that's a compliment I always take to heart, like really, really, really deeply. Yeah.
That's lovely. Before I let it go, there are three questions I ask every single guest on the show. And now it's your turn. I need you to recommend us a few things, okay? I want you to recommend us a book, something to read, uh,
Hmm.
a movie or TV show, a documentary, something to watch. And third but not least, our next guest. Who would you like us to interview next?
Does the guest have to be in the like photography
No,
world
no.
or anyone?
Anybody that you feel like you love to learn from or hear from, regardless.
Okay, okay. Okay, first the book which I actually have at the in my bookshelf. It's is this book. It's called The
Oh yeah.
Creative Act, A Way of Being. I'm sure like a lot of artists recommend it as well. I think it's such a brilliant, very abstract, so don't read it at night. You would think about it a lot. But it's an amazing book because it um helps you to see perspectives and reflect on
Yeah.
your
Very
craft.
philosophical for sure.
Yeah, yeah, which is something I'm working towards too as well. So it's something I recommend. And secondly, I think a movie that I would totally like recommend. Um, I would I would say like uh, I enjoy a lot of uh, like it's very cliche, but I enjoy a lot of like beautiful plots that comes a full circle. So um I would recommend like, Interstellar if any one of you haven't watched. I think it's like something that is a epitome of what people call it timeless. I would watch it, now again, like despite many years has passed. And it's brilliant. It surprises me again. And I guess I would want to have and I would watch would probably uh, be um, can I say like celebrity? I think that's like
Sure. Yes. Anybody.
okay. I I think I wanna like get into the mind of like how like uh or like actually an artist. I wanna think I wanna get into the mind of Yayoi Kusama.
Okay.
But she's in a mental hospital like permanently. But if you could get her, that would be so brilliant. Like I would
You
like
would
to
be
know
brilliant.
what's going on in her brain. Yeah, but that's all from me. Yeah,
Lovely. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I mean, we've been a fan of your work for quite some time, and I'm glad we had the
thank you.
chance to pick your brain a little bit, hear a little bit more for you from you, and get a sense of who is the person behind the camera. Because at the end of the day, I think that's the most important thing. You know, our work, our art is just a extension of the person behind it, and a lot of the times we appreciate what they have done it, but we haven't been able to hear their stories, their struggles, their hopes and dreams. So thank you for opening up and share those with us.
No, thank you for having me. I think I always enjoy sharing online and offline for workshops as well, because I think in this generation, like, you know, everyone wants to try something, and my little voice may help them if they chance upon this podcast in the near future. So yeah.
Lovely. Thanks again. Have a wonderful day.